Thank you so much, Vivi, and thank you to the Tizard Centre for hosting this seminar. And thank you, everybody, for coming along today. We have folks, students, colleagues, advocates for students with disabilities in New York, in Brooklyn, in London, in Iceland, and in the UK, folks from Southampton University, and people in Kent, Dorset, and Hampshire. So this is a wonderful opportunity out of the pandemic that we've been able to come together for this talk. So thank you again for coming. The topic that I'm going to be talking about is the contributions of students with intellectual disabilities in higher education. And in the UK, where I am now, I know that the terminology is learning disabilities. I'm going to be using intellectual disabilities because this is the term that is used in the US, and I'm going to primarily be talking about the US at the beginning of this talk. In the slide here, we have 5 students in the Melissa Riggio program at Kingsborough Community College, where I work, graduating with their certificates after a 4-year program at the university. And so I shall begin. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm an associate professor, which is the equivalent to a lecturer in the UK at the City University of New York. And I work at the campus of Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, near Coney Island. And I'm training teachers who are going to work in early childhood, primary, elementary, or special education environments. I'm an art specialist, and I use music, art, and movement, and work with the students to integrate the arts into their curriculum. I have a background in special education. In England, I worked in Deptford in a primary school. In New York, I worked for District 75 in the Bronx and at Lavelle School for the Blind. And I now work in higher education for CUNY. And so from my background, it was a natural fit for me to then start to advocate for students with intellectual disabilities who are attending our university. In the academic year 2019 to 2020, I took a sabbatical and came back to my roots in the UK with my husband. And we've continued to stay in the UK during this pandemic, and we are both able to teach online from the UK. And so I am teaching students in Brooklyn from the New Forest in Hampshire. Quite extraordinary circumstances. The picture on the right, the photograph, is of the art workshop at Kingsborough Community College with a diverse group of students, including students with intellectual disabilities and their paraprofessional. So my focus while I have been in the UK has been to advocate for students with intellectual disabilities here, so that they too are included and have an opportunity to contribute to higher education, universities in the UK. But there are no programs in the UK at present as there are in the USA and elsewhere in the world, as we'll see shortly. So just to give you an overview of the presentation, I'm going to talk about Michelle Heppard and her contribution as a young woman with a brain injury to the music engagement program at the Australian National University. I'm also going to talk about students with intellectual disabilities in the USA in general and at City University of New York. I'll be talking about my programs that I run that include those students too. Then we're going to look at programs in Australia and Canada and in Europe. And we'll talk then about the UK and what we can hope that might happen here in the future. So Michelle came all the way from Michigan to Australia to study at the music education program. It was an informal, individualized program for Michelle, and she integrated into our program, which was mainly working with children in primary schools at the time, and seniors, including those with dementia, and children with special needs. And we were involved in intergenerational music programs throughout the city of Canberra. Michelle helped us all with her enthusiasm and joie de vivre, her open-heartedness, and through using the arts, we were all able to benefit others. So this was really the beginning of my focus on inclusion and my work now in the USA and indeed in the UK. The photograph on the right is of Michelle with my colleague Lauren Davis, and on the left are students, one of them with Down syndrome, singing with great joy with a senior. And they're also with their paraprofessional who's joining in. So, programs in the USA. Excuse me one moment while I take a sip of water. The first program in the USA was in New Mexico in the 1980s, a long time ago. Now, the programs that continue to run in the USA are called TIPSED programs, Transition and Post-Secondary Education for Students with Intellectual Disabilities. And they are programs that are given a federal grant. Think College is the organization that oversees these programs and others. And they have a wonderful website with lots of information on it. As you can see from the map, just in New York alone, New York State, that is, not New York City, there are 28 programs. But there are many students who are on the waiting list still. So although there's a great number of programs, there are many, many more young people who are wanting to go to university than there are places. So there's more work to be done. I think there is only one state, two states, Oklahoma and ID at the top, that do not have any programs, but every other state has a program. So there are 270 programs across the USA, and just 6 years ago there were only 25. So that's really an amazing statistic, and the progress that's made in just 6 years. And one of the programs is the City University of New York program. There are 17 campuses, 5 of which have students with intellectual disabilities included and contributing to the learning community. Kingsborough Community College, where I work out in Brooklyn, received one of these TIPSED grants. And here's a photograph on the right of the entrance to Kingsborough. It's empty right now. Normally it's teeming with energy and enthusiasm from students, faculty and staff. For now, it's empty. We hope not for too much longer. So the students in the Melissa Riggio program at Kingsborough take 2 courses, undergraduate courses, and they audit them each semester. So, for example, if a student is interested in working with young children, they would come and take courses in the education program, courses such as the ones I teach. They also have their own advocacy program. They have self-management, money management, and so on, separately from the undergraduate courses they take. They're also in the student clubs and have internships. One student who was the treasurer of the education club was in the Melissa Riggio program. So I should backtrack a little bit to say that the program at Kingsborough is the Melissa Riggio Higher Education Program, and it is run by an agency called AHRC, and they work together with CUNY to provide programs for students with intellectual disabilities. And I'm going to show you now a brief film, it's about 6 minutes long, of the Melissa Riggio Higher Education Program, which is in a number of the campuses in New York. Enjoy.
We found out that Melissa had Down syndrome shortly after I had her in the hospital. It came as quite a surprise to us. I'm Laura Riggio, and this is my husband, Steve. Our middle daughter, Melissa, was born with Down syndrome and passed away much too soon when she was 20 from leukemia. And so Steve and I, when we found out she had Down syndrome, wanted to just give her the best start that we could.
At every stage of Melissa's life, she exceeded our expectations.
Right.
So when she was in middle school, we already began to think, what's after high school? And AHRC said, why not develop a program? And that's what gave birth to the Melissa Riggio program at AHRC.
Hello, my name is Michael Carpenter, and I'm part of the AHRC New York City Melissa Riggio program here at the College of Staten Island, class of 2019. And I really feel like this program opened many doors for me. It really helped me find my voice and become strong and independent and be strong enough to speak up for those who don't have a voice. And I made friends within the college campus through the Disney Club, through the Gay Straight Student Alliance, and all the student clubs and organizations I was a part of. And my academic success, it was a group effort, because with the assistance of the wonderful and talented mentors that have come in this program, I really work well as a team with them. We really work well together. They study with me, they help me every step of the way.
My name is Esteban Gonzalez. I'm a student at the College of Staten Island. At the program, mentors are assigned with students throughout the day, and we work on goals. That could be money management goals, independent living goals, or even class assignments that they have. The program is important for people with intellectual disabilities because it provides them an opportunity to be a part of the community. College life is a very key role in someone's adolescent stage. So a lot of students get to come into the program. They're involved socially with campus life. They get to go do classes just like anybody else. Overall, when students leave the program, they have a higher sense of belonging with community.
My name is Bill Fritz, and I'm the president here at the College of Staten Island. The Melissa Riggio program, students are very accomplished and supported at the highest level of the institution. It's something that probably shouldn't be surprising, but when you look at what they've been able to overcome, I think it's it's very touching. And because this has been such a popular program on campus, to me it makes sense to expand a program like this.
My name is David Gomez, and it is my honor to serve as the 7th president of Eugenio Maria de Hostos Community College of the City University of New York. When the students first joined our community, there was a great deal of skepticism by faculty and staff and other students. And within a semester, they were just our students like all other students. And it's really the truth about education in all forms. You learn more from your students than you ever teach them. And that's the wonderful thing about this program and what coincides with our greater educational mission of community impact, community service, and social justice.
Hi, my name is Safia Awari. I used to go to Queensborough Community College, and I graduated about 3 years ago. In my local community, I volunteer at Chase Playhouse, and I do a lot of city agents meetings with the young kids, learning different types of songs for children. What I like about teaching is that it's a great way of showing who you really are and to have fun.
My name is Keith Blackman. I'm a student here at Hostos Community College, and my major is English, and right now I'm doing criminal justice and public speaking class. I'm taking 2. Because the way this program, it inspires me, it motivates me, and depending on me to learn to accept challenges, because that's basically what this program is all about, accepting challenges, reaching goals, and facing our future.
My name is Alexander Patsalos. I love the program because I learn a lot, and I'm taking photography class every Friday, and I'll be graduating in May, and I love seeing everyone because this is my home. I learn a lot, I learn how to travel, how to keep myself safe, because I have a mentor named Johanna. She helps me with my internship. I work at the Lions Head Tavern. I learn a little bit about my career, because cooking is my career. So I learn to work. I love the company to show you the machine, what I have to do. You got this. There we go.
When individuals leave high school and usually have nowhere to go, job opportunities are few for them, education opportunities have been virtually shut off. So this is a great stepping stone for individuals to make that next step, to become truly contributing members of society, and to get a job, and to be part of their community, to grow intellectually, and to make others in their community feel that this is something that not only changed those students' lives, but their lives.
We're very proud of the program. It's comforting to both of us that other children are going on and being able to live full, rich lives.
We feel that the program at AHRC is a testament to her ability to achieve things that no one thought she would have achieved, and to open the door for other people to have those opportunities.
This sign, life is good every day, that's my sign.
Yeah?
That's what I say every day.
So I'll tell you a little bit about the work I do in the arts courses at Kingsborough. This is Autumn and her mentor Liz, and they are finger painting in an art and education workshop. They're looking at ways to integrate art into the early childhood education that they'll go into. And I'm also running music and movement in education workshops. And again, we're running intergenerational music outreaches. And this is at the nursing home next to Kingsborough. A student from Melissa Riggio together with an undergraduate and a resident at the Senior Centre. And we'll come back to intergenerational music outreaches later. So the arts are an ideal vehicle for inclusive practice. And everybody's on a level playing field in the arts if they're approached in this particular way. Student comments in these courses include, I was made welcome every session. I found ways to interact with small kids. They're training to be teachers. Did I enjoy myself? I did. And here's a touching one from an honors undergraduate student. the students from the Melissa Riggio program, they weren't just interested in whether I'd done the assignment, what grades I got, they were interested in me as a person. So I think that says a lot. And we run a faculty interest group, and we met just a few days ago, actually. We meet 3 times a semester to support and develop our practice as to how best to include students in our courses. So the 7 faculty that were at our meeting, all of us said they're enthusiastic. The Melissa Riggio students always come forward. They're always wanting to contribute in the class. They change the atmosphere for the better. So it's mutually beneficial. They enrich the learning environment and the university community as a whole. And here are 3 photographs of the degree ceremony at Kingsborough, right by the water's edge. And you see Safia there receiving her certificate from the provost on the right-hand side. Other international programs. Canada and Australia. University of Sydney runs a program, as does Flinders University in Adelaide. Only, unfortunately, 2 out of the 40 universities in the country. The University of Alberta in Canada has been running a program for over 30 years, and they're very proud of that program. They consider themselves the first. The University of Iceland has run a very successful program since 2007. The former director wrote, "Students are not only tolerated, but welcomed." And Trinity College in Dublin, closer to home here in the UK, runs a fantastic program where occupational therapists play a key role. And each university has a particular model. And in this situation, the students have their own program, and faculty from Trinity College come and teach them. They follow the college exam schedule, and I understand it creates some stress, both for the students and the faculty, but they're part of the university, part of the prestigious Trinity College. I was fortunate to go and visit Trinity College a couple of times before the pandemic hit, and I ran an inclusive music outreach workshop, and here you see many of the students in that program together with their faculty and occupational therapists. Dublin City University runs a program as well as 9 other programs in the Republic of Ireland. In their latest information, which was July 2019, you can find it online. They asked, "Can you tell us about your experience during COVID?" And one of the students from their program said, "Because of the virus, I couldn't carry on my work placement. I was very unhappy about this because I was looking forward to the work." And work placements are a really, really important part of these programs and finding employment for students thereafter. Salzburg University in Austria. Here's a beautiful photograph of the mountains behind the historic city. And their program just started 4 years ago with just 5 students. And it's called Blau. And it translates as education, life skills, and empowerment. Pretty much says it, doesn't it? And they also initiated the European Consortium to see how they can develop these programs in Europe. Wolfgang Plaut, the Chancellor, also started the European State of the Art Congress. It was unfortunately cancelled this year, but will run again next year. And the UK, interesting. NatSpec, National Association of Special Education Colleges. If you go online, you'll see that there are over 100 colleges across the UK, and it's a tiny country. fantastic programs for students with various abilities and disabilities and interests. But these colleges are not inclusive. They're not part of a university. Interestingly, in the UK, there are other best practices. Research, for example, is inclusive. Funding will not take place unless the research is inclusive. And the motto is, nothing about us without us. And here is a photograph from my colleagues at the Centre for Research and Inclusion in Southampton University with their researchers for Self-Building Our Lives Day in South London last year. So they are very much part of the research, and they are researchers themselves. And Tizard Centre in Kent, here we are. The courses are inclusive for students who are autistic. They have autism-friendly degrees. Students take one module at a time over 6 weeks, and all course outlines are unified. So there are really good practices happening here in the UK. And work opportunities are broad. Brighton Rocket Artists for Visual Artists. In Hampshire, Furzy Gardens Centre has young people working for the Minster Trust. And the popular Hello magazine featured a young woman with Down syndrome in the fashion industry. And also there are a number of actors with Down syndrome in TV programs here. I just want to go back to the employment statistics in the USA. Students are twice as likely to obtain employment having completed a certificate at a university. I see Michael, one of the students, clapping. Earning as are also much higher, 51% higher than other young people. 52% find work after being in a program, which doesn't seem a lot, but versus 18% of other young people, it's really very impressive. And 2 years later, there is 72% of these young people in employment. And the picture on the right is of Autumn at her early Head Start program that she internship rather. So we need to have high expectations, but also we have to wonder, are we or other professionals in denial? Well, there was a story, and I know Kenzaku is with us today, who's head of the Melissa Riggio program at Kingsborough. He helps direct the program. And I remember there was a student a year or so ago who really wanted to be a psychologist. And his parents were psychologists. It wasn't appropriate for him to be a psychologist. He wouldn't be able to do the degree. But there were things about being a psychologist that were important to him, about helping people, about talking to people. And of course, there would be opportunities for him to do that kind of work, to contribute to the community. So we need to give students choices. We're kind of running out of time, so I'm just going to tell you very briefly about Kerry. Kerry Edwards was a student at Southampton University. She got her doctorate within the Centre for Research and Inclusion, and she now works in one of the colleges, Shealing College, one of the NatSpec colleges. She writes, "I've become increasingly concerned about how isolated my students are and also their families. This is not just about students accessing the community, but also the community being able to relate to them. My students have been shut away in special schools from a young age, never having the opportunity to interact with their neurotypical peers." So she had this idea of taking her students to the University of Southampton and going into the cafe and the library and integrating them into the campus there. Well, of course, the pandemic struck and that wasn't possible. So we came up with another idea, an online music inclusion project. And some of my students who are involved in this project are with us today. So we have the Shealing College photographs here of their beautiful grounds in Dorset in England, and students in the education program at Kingsborough in Manhattan Beach near Coney Island, coming together to make music online. And here's Kerry in the classroom, the Silver Group classroom, and she works with students who are primarily pre-verbal. And here I am in the New Forest in Hampshire, teaching students in Brooklyn and students in the Shealing College a wonderful song called I Like the Flowers. So it's really kind of remarkable that this has happened out of this situation with the coronavirus, that we were able to bring people together through music online. And here are a few comments. My students clearly enjoyed it, as did the staff. And of course, the Ofsted, which is the board that comes around to schools to make sure they're of high excellence, also want to see this. One of my students said, I want to be comfortable enough to share my class with another class like this and make sure everyone feels welcomed and loved. And so she really got the essence of what we're trying to do. Michael Letman is here today, and when I mentioned that the universities in the UK didn't have programs like the one he's in, he exclaimed, ouch. Another student said, they don't know what they're missing, and indeed they don't. And Amelia Hawthorne, she's doing a master's at Southampton University, and she's saying these students could provide invaluable help with archaeological digs. They could assist with digging, sieving, troweling, and cleaning finds, and living together on a dig would help to promote friendship and understanding between both groups of students, both having equal value in our society. So what if the students from Shealing College were to visit the library and the cafe at the university? Would they currently have a sense of belonging? A rhetorical question. And I know Melanie Nind, who's done a lot of work on belonging, would be interested in this. And hopefully over the years, there will be more inclusion and more sense of belonging for these students. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, a long time ago, wrote, everyone has the right to education. Education is not only a right, but a passport to human development that opens doors and expands opportunities and freedoms. And that's for all students, including those with intellectual disabilities. Well, I see that I'm kind of running out of time here, but just to tell you briefly, Willowbrook, which I'm sure you have heard about, an institution in Staten Island, which was extraordinarily inhumane. It closed because of the expose that Geraldo Rivera gave. But there was also a grassroots advocate, Willie Mae Goodman, a woman of color, retired school cafeteria worker and parent. And with thanks to Professor Jorge Matos for that information. And of course, Senator Robert Kennedy was a public voice with his own sister, Rosemary, having an intellectual disability. And then FDR Roosevelt advocated for polio, and the Melissa Riggio and Trinity College had private funding. So today, young people with disabilities should be given the opportunity to advocate and be involved, as well as these well-known figures. So, my suggestion for today: students, young people, faculty, staff, parents, service providers, advocates interested in moving inclusion in higher education forward in the UK should come together to form an advocacy group and decide and talk about how are we going to move forward to catch up with the rest of Europe. Yes, I still think of myself as being in Europe. And yes, I would like to visit a university, a Brockenhurst, Hampshire MenCat member said to me recently. So students need a choice. And here are my references, and here is my contact information if you would like to be part of that advocacy group or find out more. So thank you so much for listening. And we're going to stop the screen share and have time for questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Sue. That was amazing. That was really good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I see Tommy has a hand up, and there's already lots of chat as well. Tommy, can you unmute? Oh, was that just a thumbs up? We can't hear you.
I think Michael also.
Not able to unmute. Oh, now I can unmute. I was just clapping.
I turned off the ability for people to unmute themselves. So I've just turned it back on again. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I was particularly fascinated by how quickly these programs have developed in the past few years around the world. And I'm wondering how, and you sort of addressed it a little bit, how you see this progressing in the next few years as far as more universities or colleges.
Good question, Tommy. The thing is, you know, everybody, the UK has a different culture. Here there's a kind of snobbery around academic qualifications, and it's what I call the Oxbridge mindset. So people are going to have to really change their kind of thinking around higher education and to make it inclusive. So yeah, we'll see. And I think it's important that, you know, if we get an advocacy group together, that we see what people want. Can I help with your advocacy group? Absolutely, Margot. Thank you.
I think Michael has also a question. Sue?
Michael. Yes, Michael, unmute.
Professor Carpenter, because there's a lot of us here, I'm just going to say this one comment from your discussion. Your presentation. I'm only going to say this. It's about Autumn. Yes, I'm impressed that you know her. In fact, I first met her in her final year when she worked at that childcare center, because it was my first year that I attended that program. And the reason I attended it, the same reason I attended your class. I would like to work with children. And I happen to have a picture. I have to save the picture when I was in a Head Start class. I worked with a universal pre-kindergarten class, and I enjoyed my job as a classroom helper, just like Autumn did. And unfortunately, if it wasn't for COVID-19, I would have liked to experience being in your class on campus.
Yes.
Because just like in the college program video that you showed, I kind of wanted to be like one of those students who worked with kids.
Great, Michael. It's great to have you in class, and I'm hoping we can maybe start to have programs here in the UK similar to the one you're in. Okay.
Nicola has got a question as well.
You got a question from Nicola as well when you're ready.
Hi, Sue. I really enjoyed that. I'm a former special needs teacher myself, so really fascinating. I'm currently doing my PhD in SEN, or special needs pedagogy. So one thing that struck me, however, is of course here, and it's quite interesting as you were talking about the sort of Oxford University divide sort of thinking, and just what struck me is, of course, over here in the UK, we have a big cohort of students of all calibers going to further education, so colleges of FE, and most colleges of FE of course have a huge range of courses. I know myself, having sent most of our students post when they've left special school in particular to FE colleges, which which are obviously completely inclusive, have students who are doing all sorts of courses, including neurotypical developing students as well. So the only thing that sort of struck me was kind of the difference between colleges of further education as we have them over here and university courses. The only thing that I did really think as you were talking, I was sort of thinking that of course not all students in the UK, that is, go to university anyway. So I guess we've got a bit of a divide between FE and HE over here.
Yeah.
That's just what struck me.
Yes, indeed. And but somehow the universities are this sort of, well, literally they're called the ivory tower, aren't they? And somehow, why is this one area in society where students don't have access? They have access to the libraries, they have access to employment. Why can't, say, for example, the college where Kerry works be part of a university? The further ed courses and colleges are great, but I'd like to see that the university is opening up too. That's on my wish list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Carpenter? Professor?
Sorry? Bahoran, hello.
Yeah, hi, how are you? Despite the fact that I have a class, but I tried to join, I would like to ask, what can we do to join your advocacy? Like what can we do to join?
Well, I will share my information, and anybody who's interested in joining can come together. So thanks, Lauren. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
As an autistic student who is able to self-advocate and has relied on a lot of my own articulateness, I feel a lot of the time the division between people with learning disabilities and autism and all of that can actually be incredibly unhelpful for people with additional needs that can cope at what cost. When we're talking about inclusion, is there a way of actually making, I did write it up there a bit, is there a way of making what you're doing more inclusive to include people like myself, who I'm now in my 4th year of trying to pass the 1st year of my master's, and that a lot has been to do with having to do a lot of explaining, a lot of emotional labor, a lot of advocating, a lot of care management, and it's exhausting when I just want to show up and I just want to study, and I don't have that freedom because I'm perceived to be clever. Going back to what they were saying about expectations are actually incredibly damaging, because without a world with milestones and expectations, people actually are given opportunities to be who they are and how they operate, instead of trying to fit us into a normative dialogue. And it just feels like a lot of the time we're being left behind because we are perceived to be clever. And I don't want to be the one that persuades people to do things differently. They should just do it. You know?
Right. Well, what comes to mind, Beth, is that at CUNY, we're really trying to educate faculty with universal design for learning. Now, the people who show up for our faculty interest group, guess what? we're preaching to the choir. They're already interested. They're already sensitive. They're already open to this. So as my colleague Stella Woodruff often says, you know, tell me how to get the faculty into these universal design for learning workshops. And I think basically they have to become mandatory. You know, there are so many diverse learners, including students with intellectual disabilities, and faculty, certainly in the US, aren't trained. They're trained in their subject. They're not trained in teaching.
And to have to explain to someone that the reason why I can't do your assignment is because you haven't told me that when I'm doing a systematic review proposal that I don't have to try and anticipate capturing everything. You know, you have to contextualize stuff. Otherwise, people just get stuck. And there has to be a lot more work done of when you are teaching how to couch stuff, how to contextualize it. But I don't know this from being a teacher. I know this from my lived experience of a lot of trauma and feeling thwarted, but continuously being told that just get on with it because you're clever. And thankfully, like Julie Beadle Brown and I have been working quite a lot together on trying to figure out where the gaps are in the Masters in Autism Studies, which is why I am amazed that this is going on, but also incredibly envious because I want opportunities like that, you know, that I don't have to fight for all of the time.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So, there is quite a lot in the chat. Is there anybody else who'd like to say something? Let me see if I can actually.
I think Mr. Newell wants to say something.
Can I say that how important words are in what we've been listening today? The way the United States puts intellectual before disability instead of learning disability. My own experience with my autistic son is we lived in California for a while when he was about 12, whereas in England he was a child with special needs. In the United States, in California, he was described as a child with exceptional needs. And we began to realize that these words are so important in establishing a kind of feeling about these situations. So I just want to congratulate the United States on the way they approach these things.
Although, thank you, Melvin. Although actually I have spoken to people here who've been amazed that we still use the word intellectual disability rather than learning disability. So, and I know people with disabilities have their own thoughts on these labels. And for example, students don't like for it to be shortened, not to be ID and LD.
Can I say something on that as a disabled
Yes.
student myself? What I find is when people shorten things related to disability or make it into a euphemism, what it does is it takes away the specificity. So when we apply for like an accommodation or something, people are like, oh, what's ID? What does special needs mean? What does differently abled mean? It's better to just like come out and say the specific thing of I have cerebral palsy, I have autism, or I have disability, because people know what the specific term means, but not the shortened one. So it goes much faster. And then like what Beth was saying, we have less emotional labor because we don't have to, on top of explaining what our needs are, explain this term means this, but some people use this, and then also ask for accommodations. So I say be specific is the main thing here.
Yeah. Okay, great, thanks. I see Melanie has in the chat has written only 6% employed in the UK. So the CUNY statistics are impressive. Yeah, so the fact that those students who are really getting employment, 72% are employed. after 2 years. I
Yeah.
see Andrew has a hand up.
Andrew Fahim.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Professor. Can everybody see me?
You can see your design. We can hear you. There you go.
So I wanted to say, as someone who has like kind of worked in like the educational field as a substitute para, although I haven't kind of worked enough, I've noticed how like a lot of students, regarded if it's, you know, special education or not, you know, they just want to, you know, act like who they are. You know, they don't want to be viewed as someone who is, you know, different. And especially, you know, the kids who are going, you know, from, you know, middle school to high school, you know, we all try to put them in their own little box and make them not understand the world. Regardless of it's special education or regular education, you know, these kids know more of the world sometimes more than us. And so, you know, for me, you know, including them in, you know, sometimes in, you know, what we call sensitive topics, you know, these topics they already kind of know. So like they feel more at ease, or like they're more, I don't want to use the word more human, if you just kind of like open up to them and have, you know, these conversations with them. Oh, what's your opinion on this matter? What's your opinion on this matter? Granted, it's not something that is over the top.
Well, what I'm getting from what you're saying, Andrew, is really valuing and respecting all of the students, whatever their ability or disability is. And I think that's key. Okay, well, I think we have 3 minutes left.
May I say something? This is Jacqueline Montgomery.
Hi.
Hi, I'm from Queensborough Community College in Bayside.
Okay. Oh, great.
UCC. And I just wanted you to know, well, my background is in disability studies, and I have my master's from the School of Professional Studies. And I have been trying to get courses for students of all abilities within my continuing education, my continuing education program. And under the Perkins Grant, I'm actually forming an interdisciplinary team model for faculty, students with disabilities, et cetera, just bringing everybody together and just seeing what we can do to kind of bring more awareness. And, you know, exactly kind of like what Margot was saying about, you know, the ID, what do you have, like, you know, all those acronyms and everything. So many faculty really don't know. And the other part of what I'm working on is seeing if I can get faculty who have disabilities, invisible disabilities, to come out. And that's what this I'm trying to work towards, this interdisciplinary team model.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. And I would love the Ruggiero program to come to QCC. I'm trying.
Yeah. Oh, good. Kerry, I'm just wondering if you have anything quickly to say about your aspirations for your students.
Can you hear me? I've unmuted. Yes, well, I suppose it's something that I really feel really passionately about. Just being out and about and seeing how excluded my students are by the general public, and not because the general public want to exclude them, but because there just is no interaction in the current UK setup. So I think that's my primary motivation, that, you know, we've got a very segregated community, and you just don't know when you're going to be faced with caring for someone with some form of disability. We're not, some students are born with disabilities, but many of us develop disabilities as we grow older due to injury or ill health. And just being more aware of what it's like and having a more inclusive society is actually ultimately better for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's a bit of work to do here, and little by little.
I think Chrissy has also got a question.
Yes.
Hi, Sue. Thanks ever so much for that. It was really interesting to hear you talk, having communicated with you over the last few months a little bit.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I just kind of wanted to throw a little spanner in the works in terms of thinking about the UK and in a way picking up as well what Nicola Elson said about some of the UK differences. And I suppose picking up on that and just wondering, there were two things really I was thinking about. I mean, as someone who worked, you know, researches in learning disability, but also as a mum with a 34-year-old disabled daughter as well. So sort of the personal autoethnographic and also the general research stuff. But I was just, as a sociologist, I was kind of also thinking about the UK context and class, because, you know, you pointed out that there's kind of, you know, the elitism, perhaps the snobbery, and perhaps even, I mean, the extreme kind of Oxbridge way of thinking about intellectual capacity. But I don't know how, I mean, there are obviously differences within the USA in terms of class. And I suppose, as I think that was picked up, is that in a way, universities are very divisive places anyway, right? And the intersection between disability and class can't go unnoticed. Now, that's not to say that middle class people aren't disabled and don't have learning difficulties. It's not like that, but it's just that there is that additional element to thinking about the divide. And I suppose it's also, there was that element of just putting it out there really, that it's a complicated kind of like machine. And I'm not saying it's right to be exclusive or anything. And then there was also that thing about, and this I suppose comes into class as well, but also within disability, was that expectation, you know, and setting people up to fail. And in a way, what I think it was Beth, forgive me if it wasn't, but I thought it was really, really good to hear that kind of element of experience being talked about in that way, of that continuous kind of struggle with not perhaps meeting the criteria or not having it explained to them in the way that is necessary in order to complete the course. And therefore it makes one feel that they're a failure, which clearly, you know, we don't want that. And I suppose those are the sorts of things that I was kind of like considering in the narrative, is that, you know, there's the intersection of class and disability, and I'm supposing race and ethnicity as well in the USA. And then also that expectation of you know, what are we doing? Are we setting people up to fail? Because if we make assumptions about everyone being included, then what does that mean? So yeah, it was just kind of like,
good point, Chrissy. I mean, the whole situation of class is just something that doesn't really come into the picture in the US. And we had a Melissa Riggio student who did an intensive writing course, anthropology course, and it was like, this is not the right place. He's going to fail. You know, you have to pick the courses correctly, and definitely the whole class issue is something.
And Michael Garber said about gender, sexuality, religion, all of the intersectionality, and as Beth said, it's really important. I mean, obviously we can't do it all, but.
I see Mike Garber says the problem with the Oxbridge exclusion of students with learning disabilities is that their graduates are not getting any help about living and working in a society that is neurologically diverse. So they don't have the opportunity to study and live and work with a diverse student body. And those guys who are going to be the executives or politicians or whatever are not going to be equipped. No.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I think we're a bit past
time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Really interesting discussions here, and I think that you know, what it was highlighted in the discussion that took place, I think today, it's amazing. So I would just like to thank you, Sue, again for hosting this event for us and coming and talking about your work. And I hope that I hope that we'll be talking again soon and perhaps taking things forward together. And the Tizard Centre is, I think that we've made it very clear from our previous meetings that we would really like to be involved. So
great.
Watch this space, really.
Great, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Vivi and the Tizard Centre again. And thank you, everybody who's come and joined in this conversation. And great to see so many people here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And see you for the next seminar. Watch out for the next seminar coming up in November. So great to see you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Well done, Sue. Thank you.
Thank
you, Sue.
Thank you.
The applause, you know.